All right, great. Good morning, everyone. All right, Arsam, I am seeing your screen, and once you share your slides, I'll let you know.
You see my slides?
Yes, it looks like they're loading in share mode, and I'm just gonna hit the record button. All right, we are good to go.
Perfect. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's 11:01, so um, let's get started. Really, we're here today to learn more about the Quad Cities Ecological Corridor Network work. This is a collaborative effort to connect nature and natural spaces across the Quad Cities region. My name is Arsam Pathak, and I am the Adaptation and Coastal Resilience Director with the National Wildlife Federation. And a lot of this work has been developed in partnership with Prairie Rivers Network and Discovery Partners Institute, along with many regional partners that we have today with us. I'll get to their introductions when they're on their part, but very quickly, the plan for today is do a quick walkthrough about what the ecological corridor network is, how this mapping framework really works. We want to share examples of how this work can support planning and implementation and all the good work you're all doing. Um, we also have been through this process, engaging a variety of stakeholders and have conducted workshops. So we want to share what we are hearing from partners during those stakeholder engagement processes. And then the big part of this is just keeping the conversation going and making sure how we can continue building this effort together. Before we begin, I will say that across this region, what we found from our work is that communities, local governments, and conservation partners, they are already doing a lot of incredible work that is reconnecting not just natural spaces, but also people with those natural spaces. The this corridor effort, it really is about connecting those efforts and then eventually creating a shared framework that helps the Quad cities work together to build a more resilient landscape. Um, Again, we're really grateful to have several of those partners joining us today, but you gotta wait a little bit before you hear from them. Um, so let's dive in. At its core, the corridor network, it is a regional framework for connecting natural landscapes and restoration opportunities across the Quad Cities. This work, it responds directly to needs that were identified by the Bi-State Conservation Action Network and their Ecological Corridor Subcommittee, as well as I said, a lot of conversations with stakeholders in the region. The goal is to create this shared blueprint that helps alliance not just conservation, but also flood resilience, climate adaptation, as well as habitat connectivity. This network, it connects rivers, wetlands, forests, prairies, green spaces all across the Quad Cities region. Importantly, it helps identify where conservation and restoration actions have the greatest flood reduction benefit. And then rather than focusing on isolated, discrete projects, the goal is that this framework can help communities think about connectivity between those projects and across the landscape. Again, the idea is to better align restoration, planning, where infrastructure investments are going in a way that supports both ecological resilience as well as the community and flood resilience. Um, We want to make sure that this work is accessible to partners. So we have developed a story map that allows users to explain the data, the metadata that the ecological corridor contains. And to walk us through that, I would like to invite my colleague Abhinav Wadhwa, the first one to get the introduction here. But Abhinav is a scientist from the Discovery Partners Institute and has led this wonderful geospatial analysis and modeling behind this work. Over to you, Abhinav.
Thank you, Arsum. I would like to share my screen. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. Going off from the introduction, Arsum have given a lot of introduction about me, but I'm a flood specialist at Discovery Partner Institute. I do a lot of flood modeling with flood mitigation and with nature-based solutions. In this work, what we are here for is the mapping of ecological corridor. As Arusam was mentioning, that if we know about where are the ecological corridors, it would be easy for us to plan for the economy, for the resilience, and for sustainability in and around in and around Quad cities. So to do that work, we have created a story map, which I'm going to demonstrate here. Please feel free to go and look back. It is accessible on your laptops, on your mobile phones, and on your tablets. It's quite user-friendly. Few things are very self-explainable. Here it goes. This is the title. When we go down, we have given a few details about what is Quad Cities, where it lies, so you can move around in this map, in this space. You can zoom in and zoom out. You can enlarge the map if you want, and if you want to see where the Quad Cities or Baikan region lies. Uh, for this work, what we have done is we have leveraged few geospatial techniques, which we use to generate new hucks in this region. And we have also utilized a few data sets which are publicly available land use maps from NLCD, National Land Cover Database, for different years, few indices, few data sets from EPA, which are currently not hosted in their website, but we are hosting it here now. For example, the NLCD land use change here. If you see, we have divided into two different sections, NLCD 2020 land use and 2100 land use. You can hover around and see how the area is changing in with respect to the land use. To get to know what each color represents, there is an option here down where it gives you all the legends of different colors which they're denoting. If you click onto a particular location, you'll get to know what is the population of that particular region. So this is an additional feature to this particular uh, uh, tool. You can enlarge and you can see in detail. You can zoom in and zoom out and see how the map looks like. The same resolution. You can move in and move out in the map. So this is few additional features here and these are applicable to all other maps as well, which I'm going to show. In order to show what is the percentage change in this urban regions, we have done uh, another calculator, the GIS calculator, and found out what are the percentage changes in the urban landscape. Again, when you click onto a particular location, you'll get to know what is the percentage change which can be expected from 2020 to 2100 in that particular region. And again, the colors, as I mentioned, they denote they are here in the legends. Going further, which is a major part of this exercise, the potential ecological corridors. So as I mentioned, we have developed new hubs to identify what are the watersheds or what are the hubs in the region which are denoting towards the climate resilience. So if you see here, you have a particular hub. If you click onto a particular hub location, you'll get to know the watershed name, what watershed it lies in, what is Huck ID for it, and then which state does it lie, what is the area which is under ecological corridor, what are the non-conserved regions, and what are the areas which are already conserved. All the areas are in acres. Again, zooming in, you can zoom in and zoom out, and see, you can zoom in up to parcel level and see, okay, where are the ecological corridors? and where does the money can go to conserve those ecological corridors. So these are the ones which we have developed. In addition to this, we have also mapped what are the existing regions which are already under the consideration of ecological corridors. So if you see here, you have regions as site-specific project, land conservation project. You can click onto that particular color bar and you can see few details about it. Where does it lie? What are the regions? And again, the zoom in and zoom out feature you have here. To complement these efforts, we have one ecological network exercise which we have done, which is a combination of different green regions, as Arsom was mentioning, which are required for the conservation in a particular region, and also a very important thing in this which we have implemented is the climate resilience. Because Quad Cities is continuously getting a lot of flooding. To mitigate those, we have identified few additional ecological corridors. For example, if I zoom in and see, we have Nahant Marsh where there are a lot of regions which used to get flooded, but if you implement few uh, measures, you can get rid of those flooding. That is done in a separate exercise, but those are in the back end of these maps when these were developed. These also have land ownership details, which are public and federal lands, where if you see over here, details about you have detailed colors and you have the legends over here. If you click onto a particular location again, you will get to know the details about which state it lies in, what is the ownership type, what is the owner name of that particular land, and what is the which city or which federal government or which agency is the owner of that particular uh, uh, conserved area. Again, I'll just show a few examples so that you will have some more details. Yeah. In addition, at the last, we have few conservation areas which are based on our exercise, where we are identifying very key important conservation areas, which are for an immediate effect to be preserved. Then this is the flood exercise which we did earlier. You have details over here. You can go and click on this link and see the flooding maps there. We have, for demonstration purpose, we've shown here like flooding from 2020 to 2025, how it will look like. Again, you can hover around and see in your region. You can zoom in this particular region and see at a particular resolution and see what would be the flooding situation and how it can be mitigated using climate change or using nature-based solutions. So we have done this exercise for 3 different periods: 2020 to 2050, 2050 to 2080, and 2080 to 2100. Again, 2080 to 2100 is the time where Quad Cities was expected to have is expected to have quite good amount of flood. So it can be mitigated using nature-based solution according to our scientific outcomes. There are a few additional data sets like cultural habitats and so on in the particular region. Again, you can zoom in and zoom out and see which are the regions, where are those regions, and so on. These are the new hubs which we have developed apart from the public database of the USDS. So what's next in this? I would leave it to Arsum for more discussion, but you can read out here. The much more important part is the ecological corridor which we have developed spans around private owned land as well, but we are not forcing anyone to give away their land, but we are encouraging people to make sure that for the betterment of the society and for the betterment of the region, if they can come up and say that, okay, I am ready to give my land for conservation, that would be really appreciated. For any contact details, you can message me, Arsum, Nina, or Mehta, which are there on call. Thank you. Back to Arsum. Arsum, you're muted.
Zoom world. Thank you so much, Abhinav. We're going to make sure that we share your contact details. And once again, here's the QR code and the link to the story map. As you see, this analysis, it covers a really large landscape. I think we analyzed over about 11 million acres of land, both the urban core of Quad Cities and then the surrounding rural pockets. What we found very quickly, some numbers from that analysis was about 5.6 million acres, so half the landscape that falls within the ecological corridor network that we identified. Within that corridor system, there was about 22%, 1.25 million acres that was already protected either through federal land, state parks, conservation areas, or nature preserves. But that also means that nearly about 4.3 million acres, which is 78% of the corridor network, is provides that opportunities for new conservation, restoration, and connectivity efforts. So as you can imagine, this is still a lot of data and a lot of potential opportunities across the region. And if you're a mapping nerd like myself or Abhinav, you would love to scroll and browse through it. But also to make this information more actionable for partners and decision makers, we created a complementary report that focuses on several key geographies where partners are already actively working and where those corridor opportunities are especially strong. Um, the result is this Ecological Corridor Network report, which highlights a few priority landscapes where collaboration could then help advance conservation, restoration, and flood resilience efforts. Um, we're going to be sharing the report by the end of this call, but very quickly, it focuses on several key geographies across the region. These key geographies, they were selected based on technical analysis, so the mapping and modeling that you just saw, but also a lot of partner conversations and input. The first geography that you see here highlighted here is the Lower Rock River Corridor, which includes landscapes such as Island Bottoms, Credit Island floodplain. This spans over 120,000 acres. And then of that area, as you could see, um, about 28% is currently conserved, but then there's 72% that remains unconserved, again, representing opportunities for future conservation and restoration. So for each corridor geography in the report, we also break the landscape down by sub-watersheds, as you could see in the bottom chart on the right. This again helps us identify where those largest conservation opportunities are and drill down on some of those places. Like in here, you could see Shadow Lake, Zuma Creek, Mud Creek, Mill Creek. And then we do that for a range of different geographies. So the Lower Rock, then we have the similar sort of analysis for Lower Wapsie River watershed, for the more urban Duck Creek corridor, and then looking at several tributaries along the main stem as well. Um, Again, each of these areas, they represent important opportunities. They contain a mix of protected lands, working lands, restoration opportunities, making them really strong candidates for those collaborative conservation efforts that we'd want to see through this work. Before moving on to the next section, I will say the goal of the network, as Abhinav mentioned, is it's not to prescribe any projects, but to really help guide decision making, voluntary conservation efforts, and highlight where those actions could really be most effective. All right, moving to the fun part. So to help make the communicate the concept beyond these like technical maps and reports, we also work with the local artist to develop more of a visual interpretation of the corridor network. Now this piece here It helps translate the science and mapping into something that reflects more of the Quad Cities spirit, the landscapes, the communities, and ecosystems here. I am really excited to introduce Megan, Meg Hollister, who developed the artwork you'll see here. Very quickly about Meg, she is a multidisciplinary artist, educator, and community advocate specializing in eco arts, digital media, as well as STEM programming. Um, as founder of Studio Two Makings, she facilitates workshops, integrating a lot of those creative practices with ecological literacy across both traditional as well as digital media, including animation and 3D design. Meg, I will turn it to you to walk us through the piece and highlight some of the elements represented here.
Thank you, Arsam, and thank you for being here, everyone. I'm really excited to debut this doozy of a project. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll do a little bit of a show and tell. And if we have time, we'll do some Q&A. So give me one quick second and we should have a share very soon. So this is an illustrated map of the Quad Cities Ecological Corridor, and using the ArcGIS, all of the metadata and all of the maps and the knowledge and minds of many environmental professionals in the room, we parsed through this data and I came up with this artistic rendering. So I'm going to take you a little bit through this. The dark green area delineated in the key is the ecological corridor that you might have seen in the map shown before that was red. And one thing that really inspired me with this is, to Arsam's point, we have a lot of opportunity here. And that was one of the main inspirations in leading this project, is to inspire curiosity and awe and opportunity to the place that we all call home. I'm a lifelong quad citizen. I've spent many hours in all of these places on the map. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit and go through a few key details, turbo status, as to not take up all of the time. But using the Illinois Endangered Species Map and working with the NWF, we came up with several feature species that I chose to illustrate. And on our compass is the regal fritillary butterfly, which is endangered in Illinois. We also can see a few feature projects noted in the broader work of the NWF, Ecological Corridor work, and Prairie Rivers Network with the Wapsie River Environmental Education Center. And I chose to use the endangered yellow-crested night heron. I would just like to point out that my background is in traditional art and illustration. And so what we're looking at here is a digital painting and drawing. Everything except for the text was drawn by hand, and it was using a digital watercolor process. And this was largely inspired by scientific botanical illustrators, children's illustrations books, illustrated field guides, and even tabletop games were some of the imagery that I had in mind when designing this. So I'm just going to kind of bring us over. Above, we see the Wapsipinicon River Valley. When we zoom into our closer Quad Cities area, we can see big blue stem representing Credit Island, swamp milkweed representing Nahant Marsh. We've also got my favorite, the Rusty Patch Bumblebee at Alinowick Park, which a few years ago we had a bio blitz there and saw that our numbers increased with the Rusty Patch Bumblebee. So I just wanted to include this as a little Easter egg. We've got Joe Pieweed coming in at Sylvan Island. And then if we come down to our bottom left here, we have Blanding's turtle as our illustration feature for Mylan Bottoms. I recently went on an all-women's hike where I met a wonderful woman who I think might be here, who shared some of her great research on Blanding's turtle in Nahant Marsh and Mylan Bottoms. So I just wanted to include that as part of that local storytelling fabric of our area. For Loud Thunder, we have the gray-headed coneflower, endangered and native to our area, and the Mississippi River main stem. And then if we zoom out a little bit here, bear with me with my touch screen, we can see the Duck Creek River watershed. And then if we go a little bit farther out, we see our beloved bald eagle representing Northeast in the Palisades and the overall Quad Cities Ecological Corridor. I've included all of the major river watersheds, including Cedar River, Rock River, Green River, Hennepin Canal, Mississippi River main stem, Wapsipinicon. Um, and yeah, I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that it inspires. I hope that it inspires you, because that's my biggest hope for this work. Go ahead and turn it back to Arson.
Thank you so much, Meg. We are so fortunate to leverage all the place-based knowledge and information you have and just have this really powerful story of the landscape through art. So thank you so much. Um, can you share a little bit about how this piece can help people see or understand what a technical map might not be able to?
Yeah, absolutely. When we were looking over when I first saw that story map, I was overwhelmed by data, and it was fascinating. But where I think illustration and what I think illustration and art can provide that data can't is, or not that data can't, but is an emotional response, that connection to a place. And I hope that that connection and awe and inspiration inspires action. When I think of my childhood, or even my young adulthood, I was inspired by being outside and by seeing things that, inspired curiosity with my area. So I hope that someone sees this map and looks up those local native plants, or goes and checks out Nahant Marsh to see if they can spot a swamp milkweed, and really just kind of facilitate that deep connection. So, because we have work to do.
We sure do. And you sort of talked about this, but what is really your hope as an artist, that the communities and decision makers and leaders might use this map, or how they would connect with this artwork?
I really hope that this artwork starts the conversation and kind of bridges the gap between those environmental experts and our broader community audiences. I could see this map in conservation centers, being used in school lessons, being used to kind of start the conversation of what you can recognize or what you might hope for, and to dive deeper into all of the metadata and the work that we can do and that we are doing right now, to help our area in the Quad Cities Ecological Corridor.
Thank you, Meg. Those are some really great ideas for, I'm sure, a lot of people on this call and the webinar today. Um, Thank you for having us. Let's keep moving. Um, so that was the artwork, and then we'd love to, again, as part of the resource packet for this work, share this so folks can use it in the outreach, education, and advocacy that they are doing. Again, really, the real value of this work is how it can support the work that you all are doing. It can support projects, planning decisions, and work happening on the ground. So for this next part here, we are so lucky to have several partners join us today, and then to share how this corridor concepts connect to some of the on the ground initiative that they are already leading in the region. Um, let's see. First, we have Mark Hunt here. Mark is the Community Development Director with the City of Bettendorf. He has been leading flood resilience efforts in the Duck Creek watershed, including voluntary floodplain buyout and identifying new opportunities for conservation. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. I will turn it over to you to share a bit more about the work you're doing.
Well, thank you so much, and just what incredible work. Are you guys hearing me okay? Can I get a sound check? Perfect. Wow, that was really neat. just so many things. 100 years ago, I wanted to be a GIS guy. I could never keep up with what you guys are doing. Holy crap! So that was early on in my career. I wanted to try GIS. I did a little bit of work in that, so I understand how much work must have gone into it. And then the artistry was just amazing. And my comment in the chat was that makes the data approachable to people who are laymen. And so I just think it's a really neat way to do it. So often we talk about the environment, especially right now, we talk about it in dire terms, understandably so. But there's also a lot of great things about the environment, and not forgetting that part of it as well. Um, if I could share my screen, I'm going to give you an update on two projects that I've been asked to update the group on. I think they fall into this mapping effort, and I believe they're represented on the mapping effort. So if I could do that, let me make sure I'm sharing the right screen. And I'm going to use old presentations, so you can kind of ignore the words, but the imagery will be fine. And you should be seeing it now. Are you seeing a slide for the Duck Creek area buyout area? I can't
Yes.
see you guys. Okay, perfect. So I've
Yes.
only got one screen. I'm working remotely on one screen today, guys. So going back to about 2015, using FEMA funding, the city of Bettendorf, through the state of Iowa and FEMA, started buying out properties along Duck Creek. Just to orient you, I-74 crosses Duck Creek. So if you're familiar going through I-74, where it kind of runs north-south over the Mississippi River, it then crosses Duck Creek. If you look to the east as you're crossing it, you would see this buyout area. We've bought out roughly 36 homes. I'm losing track now. We have about 5 acres in the watershed, and the purpose of the buyout is flood resiliency. These are high loss properties, high potential loss properties, or some of them actually have been high loss properties in flood events that are storm related, not Mississippi River flooding, but more flash flood type related, where Duck Creek comes out of its banks and impacts these homes. I've been in almost all of them that we've taken down, and once a home is flooded in that capacity, we're talking, above the street signs at some points when these floods have occurred. It's never the same home. The foundations have problems. There's just continuing issues. So we've been buying them out, and we're working on what comes next. And that's the part I'm really excited about. Is as we do these voluntary buyouts, we're starting to kind of create a contiguous area of space. You can kind of see it represented in the little green property lines here. As that fills in, we're hoping to have about 7 acres of area along Parkway Drive that nestles up against Duck Creek and our bike path to use for stormwater resiliency, flood control, open space, green space, those type of things. And we just finished our third grant, and we're hoping to go for a fourth grant. Now things are a little weird with FEMA right now, but hopefully we get back on track and we get another grant, and I can get 5 or 6 more houses to kind of square this area off. Again, this is a completely voluntary program, and people meet us when they're ready. So if you don't want to sell your house to us, no problem. We'll check with you in a couple of years, and if that works out, then great. So we've kind of worked with the residents. A lot of us know we're out there, and kind of thinking about us in the future. The thing I want to highlight that's really important to me is what it's doing elsewhere in the community, in that this buyout project is now transitioning to something else. Hopefully you see a new slide that says future use, and you see some students from Bettendorf Middle School planning a prairie restoration area on a couple of lots. This is a demonstration project. They're also planting some native trees as well. This has been in the ground a year or two now, so it's kind of just starting to come up. And it's really something that I'm proud of, in that we're bringing students down to this, what was a kind of a low quality housing area with lots of homes that were having lots of trouble, and we're making into something else that's, one, good for the environment, but two, it also gets students exposed to an environment, and conservation is part of their lifestyle, perhaps going forward. I will go directly to my next project, and then I know we're trying to go fast, and so I don't know if there's time for questions in the chat, but if you put stuff in the chat, I will try to answer it in respect to our other speakers. Another project a little bit newer that I wanted the group to be aware of, and that Nina brought up actually, is we just had a nice donation of property to the city of Bettendorf. I'm not sure I can give you quite as good of an orientation on this one, but if you're familiar with Devil's Glen Road, it's a major north-south road in Bettendorf. There's a park on it called Crow Creek Park. It's a 135-acre park. Backing up to that park is this parcel here outlined in green or aqua, as the case may be. That parcel was owned by Ann Schroeder. She was a local bar owner in Bettendorf. She owned the Tiddly Tap. If any of you were ever at the Tiddly Tap years ago, she's in her 90s and she wants to leave a legacy. And she's taking the parcel that you see there, dividing it roughly in half, and the northern half, kind of where you see the farm field portion, and a little bit south of that. That northern half will be 10 additional acres that will be conservation in perpetuity. So it will never be programmed like traditional park spaces with ball fields and swing sets and things like that. It will be truly conservation area. It will have some native plantings and things like that, but it won't be, well, it'll be accessible to the public. It won't be actively programmed, if that makes sense. The neat thing about this is that we have a 135-acre park already in that area. You can see some of the ball fields in the woods there. And then just north of it, we have a private conservation area that is owned by another family. While it's private, it does back up to our park and does kind of provide that natural habitat corridor area. It's not as accessible as other portions of the park, but it's there as well. So another about 10-acre piece coming into what we call Crow Creek Park. There is a bike path through it, so you'd be able to observe it and see it from the bike path, but no other real like improvements besides some plantings and prairie restoration in that area. I will stop sharing my screen and I'll watch the chat for questions.
Thank you, Mark. Just such important work. I think thinking through it through that lens of where these areas fall within that ecological corridor, and then thinking about the interconnectedness of landscape. And of course, not to mention the important role that you and the city leadership is playing in advancing this work, and just being a strong ally in thinking about flood reduction and also that access piece, the access to natural areas for communities. Um, Next, we have Nina Struess, who serves as the River Health and Resiliency Organizer at the Prairie Rivers Network. Nina has been deeply involved in conservation efforts in Malin Bottoms. And Nina, I will pass it on to you to talk about all the wonderful work you and the partners are doing to conserve this area.
Yeah, thank you, Arsom. So excited to be able to add on to this conversation too and kind of showcase even a little bigger piece. I know probably many people on the call today are probably familiar, but if you're not, kind of nestled between Interstate 280 and a small town of Andalusia, Illinois, we have one of the Quad Cities' best kept secrets, which is a sprawling 3,500-acre wetland complex known here locally as the Milan Bottoms. This remarkable ecosystem represents something increasingly rare, which is a largely intact natural habitat that has somehow survived the steady march of development across the Illinois landscape. And really, for decades, we've had conservationists, local community members, and wildlife advocate for its protection. The Milan Bottoms isn't just a pretty patch of wetland, though. It is a biological powerhouse, performing essential services for the Quad Cities every day. During floods, these wetlands act like a massive sponge, storing billions of gallons of water that would otherwise, inundate our neighboring homes and businesses downstream. We also have a great, water quality component with plants and sediment filtering out pollutants and centering clean air water back to the Mississippi River. There was a survey done back in 2005 that documented over 150 species here, and we now know that number is drastically increased. But that includes about 10, at least at that time, that were federally or state protected. And the area houses one of the Midwest's largest documented bald eagle night roosts. So in the spring of 2023, as part of the work that we had been doing with our Quad Cities assessment, the city of Rock Island, I'm sorry, not part of this work, but as part of that work, we were having conversations with the city of Rock Island in 2024 and came across knowing that in the year prior, in the spring of 2023, they had acquired over 500 acres of these critical wetlands near the Mississippi. So, long story short, in response to some public outcry, the Rock Island mayor and at the time and the city council announced a plan to protect roughly 600 acres in perpetuity through a conservation easement and directed a comprehensive planning process to follow. A mayor-appointed task force, including myself from Prairie Rivers Network, city staff, council members, landowners, and conservation experts, was charged with developing a wetland management plan through stakeholder engagement. Currently, I sit as the chair of that task force, which plays a pivotal role in this effort. We really, serving this essential bridge between the city and the broader public by bringing together these diverse voices and really ensuring that the community input shapes as many steps of this planning process as possible. The task force provides the transparency and accountability really needed to turn the political commitment into lasting conservation. Our work also ensures that the decisions about the Milan Bottoms aren't made behind closed doors, but in partnership with the people who live, work, and care about this landscape. So one of our most recent biggest wins on July 28th, the Rock Island City Council voted to secure these acres as a land and water reserve through the Illinois Nature Preserves Commission. And so right now, the task force continues working with the city toward official designation, which will occur in January of 2027. Safeguarding over, 600 acres of these wetlands that help to filter water, absorb floods, and shelter hundreds of species, not only now, but for years to come.
Thank you, Nina. Such good example of strong, consistent advocacy along with the city support and the results that it can achieve. And of course, Mylan Bottoms is a big part of that lower rock corridor from our analysis. Um, Let's keep moving. Next, we have Rick Newcomb, who is the senior planner with the Bi-State Regional Commission. Rick has been leading the hazard mitigation and resilience planning at Bi-State, working with cities and counties. And we'd love to hear more from you, Rick, about how some of these concepts that we're learning today can inform as these plans and the policy tools gets developed.
Thank you. Can you see my presentation here?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, so I am Ricky Newcomb. I'm a senior planner at the Bi-State Regional Commission. I mostly work in community and economic development, but we do all sorts of things at Bi-State, including transportation planning, parks and rec, trails planning, hazard mitigations. One of the things we do, which I'll talk a bit more about today, and I won't go through these word for word, but just kind of to give a visual for things. In brief, hazard mitigation planning assesses the risk and vulnerabilities associated with natural disasters to develop and implement strategies or to reduce or eliminate long-term risk of these natural disasters. It's required, the hazmat plans we work on, for short, Bi-State says Scott County, Rock Island County, Muscatine County, and Henry County, which also contracts with Stark County for emergency management services. So we currently assist in those 4 plans covering 5 counties. Most of Bi-State's work happens, though, in Rock Island, Henry, and Mercer counties in Illinois, and Scott and Muscatine counties in Iowa. FEMA requires hazard mitigation plans to be eligible for non-emergency FEMA funding, so they aren't going to hold back emergency funding from folks because of not having a plan, but they require plans for non-emergency funding. And really the purpose is to be thinking to get communities together. When we do a plan in a county, usually it's directly through the county with the cities and towns as other participating jurisdictions. In some counties, we do have the school districts involved too. And then we have other advising partners where a lot of you might come in here and kind of be advising or providing comment on things. And plans are updated every 5 years. We are just wrapping up Muscatine County's plan now, which is really exciting. Rock Island County's plan will begin later this year, and Scott County's plan will begin either towards the end of this year, a bit more, or early next year. So both of those are coming up in the metro area. And those are things to watch out for, to reach out to me if you're interested in, being able to provide a comment, or, either look out for announcements we make, or we'll try to get that information out to folks. We cover all sorts of hazards. It's really whatever natural occurrences are relevant to the area. So I know here we're talking a lot about flood resiliency. So that's probably going to be a key focus of this group on where you might be able to provide comments. But I really think things like extreme, because of the comprehensiveness of this, things like extreme heat, could also be positively impacted by natural mitigation solutions and the ecological corridor activities that we're trying to work on here. And extreme heat's one thing that's persistent. It's getting worse year to year, and probably is the greatest danger to human safety in terms of the natural disasters we do have, because it is so persistent. Benefits of hazard mitigation planning: saving lives and reducing risk. It aids risk-informed decision making for the whole community. Even though it's really required just for that non-emergency FEMA funding, it really helps for all sorts of different grant applications. If you can point to, hey, we've actually, if your project can kind of link to any plan, but the hazmat plans are a great example of this. If your project can link to, hey, there's actually some thought that has gone into this project and why it's needed, right? That will definitely aid you in getting funding for a project. So we think a bit more broadly beyond just what would need FEMA funding for the particular projects we include in there. It prepares states and communities to adapt to changing conditions and helps direct resources. It's also a great assessment of community capacities. Different communities have very different capacities. A lot of that has to do with the size of the community and the staff available and such. But it's a big factor in what communities are able to do. The communities themselves participate most directly in this plan by reviewing things. There are public input opportunities at planning meetings, at council and board meetings, where the plan's being approved by each community, and sometimes through surveys or other public outreach opportunities. And there's also advisory opportunities, which is between the public comment and the advisory opportunities. That's where I think a lot of the folks on this call could really help us out in these plans, and providing more comment on natural solutions and how that can help with both flood resiliency and improving the ecological corridor. So I think a lot of these things kind of link together in creative ways, and would encourage y'all to just keep an eye out for that. Feel free to reach out to me anytime with more questions too. And we're really excited to get plans for both counties started up quite soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. So many different opportunities to participate, and again, elevating the importance of these planning processes and getting your projects in there. That opens the door for a lot of federal and state funding opportunities as well. Um, Finally, we have our Olivia Dorothy from the Clean River Advisory Council. Olivia is here to talk about how these regional frameworks, like the corridor, are actually a direct response to a lot of local community needs and perspectives related to their natural resources. Olivia, I'll pass it on to you.
Great, thank you. I am going to try to fly through this presentation very fast because we are over time, so please forgive me. But I will be available for questions afterwards. So the Clean River Advisory Council, which is a group of environmental experts and enthusiasts in the Quad Cities, we conducted a community survey between July and December of 2025, so the latter half of last year, to get a sense of how members of the public, people, regular people, are connected to the river and what their perceptions are of nature-based solutions and using different nature-based solutions within our community to address challenges. Let's see. I'm gonna try to skip through things. In general, people felt very connected to the Mississippi River, either having a strong connection where they visited a lot, or just in terms of like having personal or family memories tied to the river. So there's a lot of nostalgia around the river. Um, I'm gonna, and some of the barriers from fully connecting with the Mississippi River are a lot of barriers that you see with other activities is that not enough free time. But importantly, for our purposes, folks also listed just not being aware of what types of events are happening around the Mississippi River. And for municipalities, this is important that a lot of folks noted a lack of comfort facilities like parking, restrooms, and so on. Uh, Concerns about the river are mostly related to trash and litter, which is very predictable. That scored very high. However, we did see significant responses in terms of lack of safe water quality, which we think is probably in response to a lot of the water quality issues that we see in the Iowa media outlets related to agricultural runoff. Also, a lot of folks concerned about flooding. Uh, Overwhelmingly, people want to see government collaboration and accountability, meaning they want all of the different Quad Cities jurisdictions to work together to address concerns related to the Mississippi River. So, what do folks believe is most important for their neighborhoods where they live? And a lot of folks, number one, want to see more trees along the Mississippi River. They're also, and this was really interesting, restoring wetlands near the city versus building rain gardens in their local neighborhoods or at their homes. This really is a distinction, I think, between things like large-scale wetland and floodplain restoration versus individual action at people's homes. So I think this was a clear indication that folks really want our local municipal governments to take more action for large-scale restoration. Because we also see also ranked number 4 is protecting places that flood naturally. We broke this down by neighborhood. So the CRAC works has priority areas, neighborhoods where we try to focus additional resources for various reasons. And so we did want to break down the survey results based on neighborhood, which you can see here. And again, this question is specific to what do people want to see in their neighborhoods near their homes? I'm sorry, I'm going to skip through some slides. This question, in contrast, is what do we want to see in the cities, like in the broader community? And so the responses were a little bit different here. There is still that restoring wetlands near the city, planting trees, and protecting places that flood naturally are big priorities. They community members really want to see the cities, the municipalities take action to, again, plant more trees along the Mississippi River and protect larger areas of wetlands and floodplains around the community, as opposed to focusing on individual actions like building rain gardens or making green walking or biking trails. And this slide is a little bit messed up, so I apologize for that. Open-ended responses from the survey. Folks really want to, they like the direct action of river cleanups, promoting stewardship through collecting trash as well as planting trees again. But they also prioritize the restoration of native habitats and native plants, making riverfront areas a lot more accessible and safe and equitable for recreation, and building out new educational opportunities for youth. And so, let's see, I'm going to skip through this. Um, Folks really want to stay connected about Mississippi River issues. It is a beloved resource for our community, and there is a lot of community support for doing things that benefit the Mississippi River. And hopefully that was 4 minutes. It's very truncated, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Olivia. Sorry we had to breeze through that. I only wish we had more time to share all these wonderful stories and the work that's happening. But really a big thanks to all our speakers for sharing those examples. Just wrapping up here, moving forward, there remains a lot of ways y'all can still continue engaging with this work. We want to continue collaboration. We invite you all to add projects to the corridor network. Rick mentioned opportunities to participate in the planning processes, the hazard mitigation plans, and then we are also planning a fall engagement session where partners can continue sharing progress, identify funding opportunities, and strengthen that coordination. Please, I urge you all to scan the QR code to fill up the partner survey so we can keep track and invite you to all these activities and make sure you're on the list for a lot of these upcoming initiatives. And finally, we have created a shared resource folder where partners can access the full report that we shared earlier. There is a partner and project roster. So if you complete the survey, you are going to be added to that roster and folks can see what you're working on and hopefully enhance that collaboration and coordination across the region. We're going to be sharing the webinar recording and additional corridor resources. Again, there's a new QR code, so urge you all to scan this. Really, our hope is to continue building a shared understanding of the work that is already happening across the region and support and strengthen it and be a resource. But then, I mean, thank you so much for joining us today and for your continued collaboration. If you have questions in the chat, we will make sure that it gets added. The questions get added to the resource folder, and we're going to reach out to those individual speakers that the question might be directed at and make sure those gets answered. We are hoping all of these resources, along with the corridor network, to be a living document. So we're really excited to just continue building it together with partners all across the Quad Cities. Please feel free to reach out if you have questions or project ideas. But thank you again for being here.